Hey guys, what's up? So it's Wednesday and we're still walking through Holy Week, and maybe you've been keeping up with us the whole time, or maybe you're just watching this one video on its own. Maybe it's not even Holy Week when you're watching this, and that's completely okay, because the goal of these videos is to help center our mind back on Jesus and his walk to the cross, and that's worth remembering any time of the year at any point. And so we want to focus today on guarding our heart. We want to guard our heart and protect it from temptation and protect it from the enemy and what the enemy might use to distract us from our walk with Christ, distract us from being directed towards the goal of pointing people to the cross. And so we want to look at what happened to Judas, what he did, the choices he made that led him to this point. And we're going to be in Luke chapter 22. We're going to start in verse 3. And this is what it reads. Then Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. Judas was one of the 12. He was walking with Jesus, doing ministry. He had seen the signs that Jesus performed, but for some reason his heart was vulnerable to attacks from the enemy. For some reason he was not guarded. And just like Judas was pulled away from Christ, we today can get pulled away, not lose our salvation, but we can get pulled away from the direction in which God is leading us when we allow the enemy and temptation to come in and distract us completely. And so we've got to be intentional. You want to look at what happened next in verse 4. It reads, "And Judas went to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guard and discussed with them how he might betray Jesus." How he might betray Jesus. So Judas goes to them and he says, "Hey guys, can I help you betray Jesus?" In Matthew, we see that he actually comes up and he asks them, he says, "Hey, what would you give me if I betrayed Jesus?" And in Matthew, it says that they gave him 30 pieces of silver. And here in verse 5, it says that they were delighted and agreed to give him money in exchange for betraying Christ. They gave him money and he consented and watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over to them when there was no crowd present. You see, the Pharisees were scared of popular opinion and of people turning against them and they losing favor in the eyes of people by crucifying or by arresting Jesus. And so you have this moment where the Pharisees are living for their own name and power and authority, and Judas has allowed himself to be distracted by the enemy, by the allure of money, which 30 pieces of silver was not an insane amount. It wasn't a magical, make you wealthy overnight kind of lottery winning ticket kind of deal. But still, it was enough to pull him away from loving and honoring Jesus. Now, this was Judas' role. He was meant to lead Christ to the cross. And I'm sure it broke Jesus' heart, just like it breaks his heart when we now turn away from him because of temptation. So today, let's guard our hearts. Let's spend time in his word. Let's spend time praying. Let's find people who love Jesus and ask them to speak life into us. Let's surround ourselves with him, that our heart might be guarded against temptation and guarded against the enemy, because we have much to accomplish. The name of Jesus needs to go out into the rest of the world, and we can't do that if we're getting tripped up by sin in our lives. So maybe we need to confess something to someone about a decision we've made or something that's going on in our lives. Do it. The freedom that comes from it, because God doesn't judge you, because the cross has covered that sin. His blood shed for you has kind of washed that sin away. And so just confess in your heart, confess to God, and confess out loud to someone what is holding you up, so that we can better accomplish God's goal for our lives here. So enjoy this Wednesday, protect your heart, and get after making Jesus known.